sometimes I would write him emails just so that they wouldn't be on his blog. But then I began writing some things, and he asked me to do some guest blogging. And I wrote about mainly jail diversion for the mentally ill, and a little bit about indigent defense, and a little bit about my Color of Justice project. Then he went out of town and asked me to be one of the guest bloggers while he was gone. He encouraged me for a long time to do my own blog. But in Texas, we have to campaign, and sometimes that was keeping me busy. But during a campaign, I decided when it was over with that that's what I was going to do. So I looked at a lot of different blogs and tried to decide what I wanted to do and how I could do it, and how I could do this within the framework of the ethics that we're bound by, and in ways that would not cause me to not appear to be impartial and to be recused from cases. So I decided that I would write about the things that happen in court. A lot of funny things happen, a lot of sad things happen, but it wouldn't just be about court. I decided that I was not going to name lawyers or to name defendants. I didn't want people to realize, oh, that's the case in most situations that she's talking about. So that kind of makes it difficult, because if I'm in a trial and something happens, I'm not going to be blogging about it right then. I'm going to hold that off and blog about that at a later time. I put links on there, but I don't want to put links that are promotional. I put links that are informational. Either they're legal sources, they're government sources. I don't put campaign sources, or I don't put law firm links, even if they've got some very good stuff on there, because it would look like I may be favoring that particular law firm. The kind of things that I write about are, you know, I had an indigent defendant come in front of me, and he was asking me to fire his lawyer because his lawyer, he claimed his lawyer wasn't doing a good job. And in criminal court, you get that all the time. And usually it's a communication issue. Usually the lawyer's doing the work, but he's not really communicating it to the client, or the client's not liking what he's hearing about the case. But sometimes the defendant is right, and you do have to fire the lawyer. So I always ask the defendant, well, tell me what you mean. Tell me what you're talking about. And the guy said, Judge, he's not lying for me. You know, and so these little things happen, and they're funny. So those are the kind of things that I write about. And I told some of you the story about the blouse. You know, it's hard to be fashionable in court when you have to wear a black robe. It's not very attractive. But I got a blouse that was silk, and it was black, and it was cream, and I thought it looked so good under the robe. And the morning that I put it on to work the first time, I fixed my robe in my mirror, and I looked, and I thought to myself, you really look good. This looks really sharp. And I went out in the courtroom to do a hearing with the defendant, and it was a woman who was charged with robbery. And she was wearing the same blouse. And I thought for a minute, no one's going to notice this. This is going to be a short hearing, and no one's going to notice this. And my bailiff, I looked at him, and he was doubled over, laughing and pointing. So I gave him a strong enough dirty look to make him stop pointing, but I couldn't make him stop laughing. And so those are the kind of stories that I get comments on. And sometimes I write about the sad things that happen in court as well. And sometimes I write about historical things, about the suffrage movement, about women in the suffrage movement. I wrote about the Susan B. Anthony trial. I write about life on an island and dealing with hurricanes and such. Now, I have had 3 very high-profile trials. And one of them was the Robert Durst murder trial. One of them was the microwave baby case, where a man put his baby and cooked him in a microwave. And the other were all 4,016 cases that came out of the explosion at the BP British Petroleum plant in Texas City in March of 2005. Immediately after I wrote the last post, I went into the microwave baby trial. And right after that, we began trying some BP cases. And none of them went to verdict because they all settled, but each time we were in trial for months at a time. And so that took me up to the storm Ike. And so that's why I could not post during those high-profile trials, because it would be very apparent to anybody who picked up a newspaper or television that, oh my God, that's who she's talking about. I don't want lawyers to worry about being embarrassed. I don't want litigants to worry about it. I don't want them to be distracted. There are a lot of things that happen in the BP case, and now that the case is all settled and there aren't going to be any appeals from it, there's a lot of rich material that I got. We were in court in that case for 3.5 years with hundreds of lawyers. And so there are moments of levity when you spend that much time with people. And I'll tell you that one of the stories that I actually did write about one story, and that was where we were in a hearing in court, and there were about 30 lawyers on the plaintiff's side and about 30 lawyers on the defense side. We always had a full room. And at one point, 2 of the lawyers slipped out of my courtroom, and they snuck into my chambers. And in my chambers, on one wall, I've got pictures of people who inspire me. I've got Eleanor Roosevelt. I've got Barbara Jordan. I've got Minnie Fisher Cunningham, who was the leader of the suffrage movement in Texas. I have lots of Lyndon Baines Johnson, and I have some John F. Kennedy and some other people. Well, what these lawyers did was they took down one of my pictures of John F. Kennedy, and they substituted a picture of one of the BP lawyers. He goes by the nickname of El Grande, and he was a lawyer who, in the beginning, he and I did not think we would ever like each other. There was about 2 years of me thinking he was a horrible person and him thinking I was crazy and horrible. And after it all ended up, we became very good friends. Now that the case is over, during the storm, he checked on me at least once a week, and we're very, very, very good friends. But he actually took a black magic marker and autographed it El Grande. So I did write about that, and I will tell you that during the storm, when we were in the evacuation process, he called me several times. And there was one voicemail message that I have to save where he says, "I'm not calling to check on you. I'm not calling to check on the Galveston lawyers who worked on the case with me. I want to know that my picture is still on the wall."